Okay, thanks very much for inviting me here. And I'm going to go over, first of all, just a quick summary of what I think are the good and the harmful effects of religion, and then I'll give the reasons why I think the harmful effects outweigh the good. I think it's fair to say that religion does appear to do some good. It can give people a sense of comfort in life, and it can give people, at least some people, a reason to do good things. But I think that those aspects that appear to come from religion actually come through religion. There's a lot of research in the field of positive psychology in recent years, which is proper academic research as opposed to pop psychology. It's identifying the things that are important to human well-being. And there are things like absorption in activities, positive relationships with other people, perception of self-control of your life, and a connection with something larger than yourself that some people could find through religion, some people find through just a general philosophy of life. Now, the significant thing about these positive benefits that people can get through activities associated with religion is that you can also get those benefits from secular activities. Similarly, in terms of religion enabling people or helping people to do good things or even heroic things, whether that be engaging in charitable activities or helping other people in other ways, they are things that some people can find the strength to do through their religion, but equally you can do the same things without religion, and I would argue that doing the same things without religion, i.e. not because you think that there's some afterlife reward for what you're doing, makes the activities more intrinsically good. That has to be balanced by a lot of the harm that is caused by religion. And I'm going to give some specific examples, first of all, that are taken from a document called the Handbook of Religion and Health, which is a sort of meta-analysis of a whole range of studies over recent decades on the health impact of religious beliefs and religious activities. Now, they do conclude that there are a lot of surveys that on balance find some positive effects. I'll leave that to your own self to go over rather than use my time making your side of the argument. But I'll give you some of the counter effects that it also says balance those out. Devout, orthodox or dogmatic religion is significantly correlated with emotional disturbance. Religion discourages self-acceptance, self-interest, self-directedness, a sense of ambiguity and uncertainty, which are helpful in terms of human well-being. And there are a lot of specific studies that show the following correlations. That religion is correlated with stopping life-saving medications, which can be anything from, diabetes, epileptics, asthmatics can sometimes not take their medication for religious reasons, and failing to seek timely medical care, refusing blood transfusions, which we're kind of familiar with in terms of Jehovah's Witnesses, and which may be okay, in terms of doing it yourself, but when you impose it on your children, that is another matter. Refusing childhood immunisations, refusing prenatal care and doctor-assisted delivery, fostering, encouraging and justifying child abuse, which could range from anywhere. The case we'd be most familiar with here is the religious tendency to help to excuse or minimise or cover up child sexual abuse by priests, to other cases in other places where individual parents, for religious reasons, will perform variations of exorcism ceremonies to try to rid their children of what they believe to be evil spirits. And also just generally unhealthy belief systems in terms of people. If you believe in a benevolent God, you can get some psychological benefits. If you believe in a punishing God, you can have detrimental psychological effects. There are other studies correlating religion with authoritarian personality traits, with prejudice, with anxiety, and with dependency. And one of the things that religion can, it can be a buffer against some causes of stress, typically health matters and financial matters, but it can also exacerbate other forms of stress, typically family crisis, where religion puts people in a position where they believe that particular behaviours with regard to family are more important than dealing with things empathetically and sympathetically. There's a kind of caveat now to a lot of these studies, in that some of them, on both sides of the argument, they show correlations. They don't necessarily show causation. The causation could be either way around, or it could be another factor causing both. It could be, for example, that if you're satisfied with your life, that makes it easier for you to believe in a benevolent God, and that if you're not satisfied with your life, that makes it harder for you to believe in a benevolent God. So a lot of these studies, I think, have to be taken with a grain of salt, but there is that level of correlation with harmful effects that have to be taken into account, along with whatever the positive effects are. There's one study that's quite significant, by the way, that I just want to raise, which is there's been a lot of studies over the decades attempting to show the correlation of prayer and showing that prayer works or doesn't work. And some studies said it does, some studies say it didn't. But a lot of the studies had a lot of methodological flaws in them. And so there was a very serious Harvard study that just finished a couple of years ago. That was a multi-year, multi-million-dollar study that was testing the effect of prayer in a controlled environment on people who were recovering from heart surgery, and finding out whether being prayed for or not being prayed for helped in terms of the amount of complications that they had in their recovery. And what they found were two things. The first, unsurprisingly in my opinion, is that being prayed for made no difference to the level of complications. The second backup thing that they were trying to find out was there a placebo effect, in that would knowing that you are being prayed for have an effect psychologically. And it turned out that it did, but in the opposite direction than they expected, that if you knew you were being prayed for, you had a significantly higher chance of having problems in your recovery. So prayer at best is neutral and at worst is harmful. So if you're going to pray for somebody, at least don't tell them that you're going to pray for them. There was quite a funny article. I don't know if any of you read The Onion magazine. It had an article once, well, not an article, it was a photograph, but a bit of an article underneath it of what looked like a very sick child, and the headline over it was God answers prayers of very seriously ill child, and then the subheadline was No, says God. So you want to be careful if you think that prayer is a reasonable substitute for proper medical care. There's also a lot of harmful effects on society as opposed to on the individual. There's the correlations between religion and societal health in modern Western, reasonably prosperous democracies in recent years have shown that higher beliefs in God and higher rates of worship in God result in, or correlate with, in fairness, higher rates of homicide, juvenile and early adult mortality, sexually transmitted diseases and infection rates, teen pregnancy and abortion. And in America, which is the only, it's kind of the odd one out in terms of the Western countries, in that it's more religious than a lot of the others. But in America, the societal problems of that nature are highest in the Bible Belt states and lowest in the liberal parts of the United States of America. The prison population in America for atheists is significantly lower per head of population than the amount of atheists in the country. And there is a lot of statistics with regard to sex offenders being more likely to come from strongly religious families than from liberal families. And there are studies ranging over decades that show consistently that is the case. So you have a range of positive and negative effects that you have to sort of weigh up as to which, in your opinion, is more likely to tip the balance one way or another. But there is a kind of philosophical underpinning for it that I think has to be borne in mind. And that is that, in my opinion, that the underlying problem that makes religion inherently harmful is that it is based on faith, and it's based often on dogma. And I believe that faith, by which I mean believing in things disproportionately to the evidence that is available to cause you to believe in them, corrupts our sense of truth and corrupts our sense of searching with integrity for information about reality. Dogma, by which I mean unquestioning belief in any particular religious ideology, corrupts our ability to distinguish between right and wrong, and I'll explain in a second why I think that is the case. But before I do that, I just want to make a distinction that I'm not suggesting that religion is the only phenomenon that this applies to. There are a lot of secular ideologies and secular activities and secular organisations that also rely on faith and on dogma. Anything from communism to fascism to Nazism to the unregulated free market. A lot of these belief systems rely on faith and on dogma. But the distinction between those secular faith and dogma ideologies and religious faith and dogma ideologies is that with the secular ideologies, when they in practice bump up against reality, and when people notice that they aren't working in practice, there's a self-correcting mechanism in that people just know that it's not working. And the denial that it's working can only last so long. I remember after the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the Communist Party of Ireland, open bracket, Marxist-Leninist, close bracket, lest they be confused with any other Communist Party of Ireland, had a public meeting in Dublin, which they publicised with posters saying, public meeting 8 p.m, Kinlay House, Wednesday, the such and such date, and the title of the meeting was, "Following the collapse of the revisionist traitor regimes in Eastern Europe, hail the success of genuine socialism in Albania." Now, I'd say that may or may not have pulled in the crowds, but it was certainly found by reality to be untrue. But with religious faith and dogma, religion places its imagined rewards and its imagined threats in an untestable afterlife. And it makes those rewards so attractive because they're based on eternal rewards. It makes the threats so threatening because they're based on eternal damnation. It's given such a free ride by society and by governments for historical and political reasons. It is protected from criticism in a way that other secular ideologies are not. And for those reasons, I think it's more important to be sceptical intellectually about religious faith and dogma than it is about secular faiths and dogmas, because the secular faiths and dogmas will end up being tested by reality anyway. Now, I want to explain why I think that religious faith and dogma corrupt our search for the truth and our quest for morality and behaviour that is empathetic to other people. In terms of the search for truth, I think it's pretty clear that every generation we discover more and more about how the universe operates. And as we discover more and more about how the universe operates, a lot of things that at one stage people believed were caused by God are shifted into the column of now we understand how it happened naturally. And you never get anything shifting in the other direction. You don't get explanations shifting from a scientific explanation to a religious explanation. There is an inexorable move in the direction of natural explanations for things. And insofar as the remaining mysteries of what happened before the Big Bang, if before is probably the wrong word because time began at or shortly after the Big Bang, but beyond the Big Bang, that answer I think will be found in quantum physics rather than philosophy or religion. And the more recent findings in that area are suggesting that it is naturally feasible for a universe to come from what we would, in our language today, describe as nothing. And by nothing, I mean just the absence of space and time. If we park the idea of religion for a second, and if we look at the question of morality, which I think is the second area where religion corrupts our behaviour and our thinking processes. If you imagine that there was no religion and think about what right and wrong would consist of, you would probably conclude that it exists somewhere in the realm of identifying whether your behaviour impacts on the suffering or the well-being of other sentient beings. That if you do something that causes unnecessary suffering for other sentient beings, that's a bad thing. If you do things that help other sentient beings to flourish, that's a good thing. And it's obviously more complicated than that, because every action you have has a lot of intermingled, interdependent consequences. And we can never know what the balance of those consequences can be, but we can know roughly the direction. We can know enough to know that some things are wrong. How long is that left?
You could wrap up.
Okay, I'll wrap now. So, what religion does is it adds to that mix. It adds to that mix a complicating, distracting and corrupting factor of saying, even if you believe that what you are doing is causing unnecessary suffering, even if you believe that, you should do it anyway, because the creator of the universe has already resolved that issue for us. But even when you go over your holy books or your sacred texts and you say, here's a passage that I think is good, love thy neighbour as thyself, or some variation thereof, and you say, yes, I believe in that, and there are other passages that you have to kind of justify to yourself and say, well, that must mean something else, or if you interpret it this way, or if you translate the Arabic this way. The key distinction is even by making that distinction between passages that you recognise are good and passages that you have to explain to yourself before you satisfy yourself that they're good, it is clear that you're applying your own morality to those passages and not getting your morality from those passages. So on balance, I believe that religion, although it seems to do good, because good things are done through religious activities, on balance it does more harm than good. Thank you very much.